do, and I love my job, and I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to teach you about your brain and what you can do to bring more gratitude and joy to your life. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in New York. I currently live in Montana. I'm a nurse by trade. I spent about half of my nursing career working in the emergency room and another half doing clinical documentation integrity, which is basically paperwork for reimbursement and coding. And I had the nagging feeling for about 2 years that there was something more or different for me to do with my life. So I resigned my job and found life coaching, and I haven't looked back since. So I really enjoy life coaching. I love being a product of my product. Being here in Florida is a dream of mine, actually. I'd like to spend some time both here and in Montana. And I'm so excited to have the opportunity to be here today. I was trained at the Academy for Coaching Excellence. I'm still actually in training. I'm working towards my Associate Certified Coach certification. And I have about 150 training hours and 70 coaching hours so far. That credential is a knowledge and time-based credential. And today we're going to talk about 4 steps to overcome negativity bias, 3 things to increase positive experiences, and 2 things to focus on as we train our brain, and then 1 very powerful reminder. So why live life now? When I was about 42 years old, I realized that life was kind of passing me by. I wasn't really participating in it. I just felt like I was doing all the things, going to work and coming home, raising my family, and really not taking the time to enjoy what was going on with life around me. So I decided to take back my life and live life now. So I'm going to share a story. Please let me know if any of this resonates with you or if you've had any experiences like this yourselves. I can remember so clearly I was standing in the closet in my bedroom looking up at my clothes, anticipating a conversation I was going to have with my husband. And I was thinking to myself, well, I'll say this, and then he's going to say that, and then I'm going to say this, and then he's going to say that, and I'm going to have to defend why I want to do the thing. So my brain was trying to protect me from the anticipated not being able to have something that I wanted. And if I had gone out to speak to him about that right then, what do you think would have happened? I would have started from a place of anger and been upset. Likely he would have been defensive, and it would have continued to go downhill from there. Here's another one. Last fall, I was hiking to a lookout. And the whole way up, I was thinking to myself, oh, why do I always do this? I let myself get dragged out here. I don't know why I do this every time. I can't keep up. I'm too slow. I'm too out of shape, and blah, 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 blah. Of course, I don't like hiking. Who wants to hear that for an hour or even just 15 minutes? So when we look at the neuroscience behind this, it makes sense. Reportedly, human beings have 60,000 thoughts a day. 95% of those thoughts are the same ones we had yesterday, and 80% of those thoughts are negative. We think the same negative thoughts over and over again. Our brains are organs that think, just like our hearts beat and our stomachs digest. So let's think about that for a minute. When we wake up in the morning, our brains just start thinking. We don't sit there and say, okay, clap on, clap off, like the clapper, right? Our brains just start thinking. It's an involuntary process. Our thoughts just occur. But you are not condemned to your habits, that you can indeed emerge from them, change and grow freer, according to Sogyal Rinpoche in the Tibetan book of Living and Dying. We have a choice about what to do with those thoughts. We can choose to engage with them or not, to take action based on them or not, to believe them or not. This is where we have power and choice. If it were that simple, my talk would be over. But as I mentioned, we have the same negative thoughts over and over again. That's 45,600 negative thoughts. Why do we do this? So picture back in the day, it's about 100,000 years ago, it's caveman times, and it's time to go out hunting and gathering. It's time to eat. So we walk in the woods, we round the bend, and there's this black kind of curvy thing on the ground. Oh my gosh, what is it? We stop because our amygdala, the part of our brain that does our fight, flight, or freeze, needs to process the information quickly, it decides that it might be a threat, so we freeze. Then the prefrontal cortex, part of our brain that processes more information, has a minute where it's safe to say, okay, well, other people have walked past. No one's gone screaming, running away. It seems like it's not moving. I don't hear a rattle. There's nothing else going on. It must be safe to proceed. So we are able to continue on. Our brains are vigilant. They're constantly scanning for danger. Those of us who have survived to this day and age look for risk first. And since we're not about to get taken out by a woolly mammoth, it shows up as anxiety, fear, and worry. This is our negativity bias. According to Rick Hansen in his book, Buddha's Brain, our minds are like Velcro for negative information and Teflon for positive. Bad experiences and negative experiences stick, and positive ones just slide right off. As a matter of fact, it takes 5 positive interactions to overcome 1 negative one. And even if you've had an unlearned negative experience, it still leaves an indelible trace in your brain so that if you have, it waits to reactivate should you have another fear-provoking event like the previous one. Again, we have choices, and we as humans are more than our thoughts, opinions, and beliefs. In her book, Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert explains how to gracefully live with her fear. In her chapter called Road Trip, on page 24, she says, "Here's how I've learned to deal with my fear. I made a decision a long time ago that if I want creativity in my life, and I do, I will have to make space for fear too. Plenty of space. I decided I would need to build an expansive enough interior life that my fear and creativity could peacefully coexist, since it appeared they would always be together. In fact, it seems to me that my fear and my creativity are basically conjoined twins, as evidenced by the fact that creativity cannot take a single step forward without fear marching right alongside. Fear and creativity share a womb. They were born at the same time, and they still share some vital organs. This is why we have to be careful of how we handle our fear, because I've noticed that when people try to kill off their fear, they often end up inadvertently murdering their creativity in the process. So I don't try to kill off my fear. I don't go to war against it. Instead, I make all that space for it, heaps of space, every single day. I'm making space for fear right now in this moment. I allow my fear to live and breathe and stretch out its legs comfortably. It seems to me the less I fight my fear, the less my fear fights back. If I can relax, fear relaxes too. In fact, I cordially invite fear to come along with me everywhere I go. I even have a welcome speech prepared for fear, which I deliver right before embarking upon any new project or big adventure. It goes something like this. Dearest fear, creativity and I are about to go on a road trip together. I understand you'll be joining us because you always do. I acknowledge that you believe you have an important job to do in my life and that you take your job seriously. Apparently, your job is to induce complete panic whenever I'm about to do anything interesting. And may I say, you do a superb job. So by all means, keep doing your job if you feel you must. But I will also be doing my job on this road trip, which is to work hard and stay focused. And creativity will be doing its job, which is to remain stimulating and inspiring. There's plenty of room in this vehicle for all of us, so make yourself at home. But understand this, creativity and I are the only ones making any decisions along the way. I recognize and respect that you are part of this family, so I will never exclude you from our activities. But still, your suggestions will never be followed. You're allowed to have a seat, you're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. You're not allowed to touch the road maps, you're not allowed to suggest detours, you're not even allowed to fiddle with the temperature. Dude, you're not even allowed to touch the radio. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to drive. Then we head off together, me and creativity and fear, side by side, forever, advancing once more into the terrifying but marvelous terrain of unknown outcome. I really love how Elizabeth Gilbert identifies that fear is going to come along, because we can't just not have fear. It's just something that happens. It works best when we understand that it's going to be along for the ride, and we can just choose to not engage with it. I picture it as putting my fear in the corner. I'm like, thank you very much, but you're not needed right here, right now. Go have a seat over there. It's like time out. All right, so we learn how to deal with our fear gracefully. There are 4 steps. First is to have an awareness. All the thoughts you're having about a situation, know that they are normal. It's part of the human experience. Nothing has gone wrong. Accept all the thoughts and feelings. I like to write them down one by one so I can deal with each of them. Now we sort through the muck and mire to see what's actually going on. We're going to get to the truth. State just the facts. No story, no adding on, nothing extra, no opinion, just facts, that which would be provable in the court of law. Often through stating just the facts, you can see what's actually going on. You may determine that you're actually safe doing something that feels scary. You might notice that the thoughts you're having are just negativity bias. You acknowledge it and say, thank you very much. Then we shift our focus to something else more interesting. I'm going to teach you how to shift your focus to something more interesting and what would be more interesting to shift it to in the second part of my talk. So just put a pin in that for a minute. As I already mentioned, you cannot not think negative thoughts. You could try to muscle your way through it, but it would not be pretty. It would be a frivolous endeavor and a waste of time, energy, and effort. Your life will be easier if you shift your thoughts to something more interesting. For example, let's try this. Don't think about a hot fudge sundae. No ice cream, no ooey gooey chocolate, no cherry on top. Don't think about it, none of that. Was anyone able to not think about a hot fudge sundae? The way to not think about a hot fudge sundae is to shift your attention to something else, like a watermelon. Hopefully they're red and juicy, they still taste yummy, it's fun to spit the seeds. So the way to not think about something is to shift your attention. Lastly, take action. There are a few benefits to taking action. Fear and anxiety create energy that needs to dissipate, and it's best when we get to decide where we want that energy to go. Also, as you take small steps forward and your brain sees that it's not that bad, that you actually are surviving, you can continue to take small steps forward. And before you know it, you're walking towards your goal. This summer, I had the opportunity to put this into action. My husband and I were floating out to one of the local islands on one of the local lakes where we were going to have dinner and jump off a cliff and just kind of hang out and swim around. So we went up to the island, we walked up to the cliff. It was not very far, maybe like 10 feet or so. I walked right up there like I was ready to go, and I froze because some part of my brain was like, nope, no good. So I had the opportunity to step myself through this. First thing I did was have an awareness. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling kind of nervous. I thought I could do it, but look at that, I can't. My brain's trying to keep me safe. Then I sorted through to the truth. Well, let's look at this together. I looked at the edge. It was like a clear drop. I picked the route I was going to climb out. I didn't see anything I was going to get hung up on. My husband had already jumped before me and he had a safe landing and everything was fine. So I determined that I would actually be safe to jump off the cliff. Then I shifted my focus. I want to be an adventurer. So I thought about how fun it would be to jump off the cliff and to be an adventurer. How proud of myself I would be for actually doing it and not just succumbing to my fear. All there was left to do was to take action. So I jumped, and of course it was fine. I had a great time. It was good, the water was refreshing, and I was adventuring. It is through our actions, words, and thoughts that we have a choice. If we choose, we can put an end to suffering and the causes of suffering and help our true potential to awaken in us. Also, Sogyal Rinpoche in the Tibetan book of Living and Dying. I could have easily missed out on this positive experience by not taking action, but I chose to overcome my negativity bias and live my life's intention to be an adventurer and have fun. How can we create and more easily tap into this positivity? I've heard gratitude is a helpful thing, but I have to be honest. I used to stand, hold on, and say, I'm grateful for my house and for my job and my family, I guess. That doesn't work, right? So the way to really tap into positive experiences is through these 3 steps. One is to turn positive facts into positive experiences. We do that by looking for the good that happens. Don't just let things roll by, but actually look for the good. Pay attention. Maybe your husband doesn't bring you flowers, but he cooks dinner or holds the door open for you. Isn't that so nice? Then savor the experience. Sit with it. Hold on to it for 5 or 10 or 20 seconds. Don't just run off to the next thing. The longer it's held in awareness, the more emotionally stimulating, the more neurons will fire and wire together, the stronger the trace memory. Now you're creating positive trace memories. Focus on how good it feels and pay attention to the details. Lastly, soak it up, like a sponge absorbs water, or how a sun's rays fills through a dark colored t-shirt. You want to bring it into your core, relax into your body and absorb the emotions. And lastly, don't forget about showing compassion for ourselves. I believe everyone can use more self-compassion. Think about someone who loves you and maybe how they feel about you, or how you might feel about someone else, and extend that same compassion to yourself. You can even put your hand on your heart and breathe into it. Be open to the sense that you're receiving compassion. So make it a positive experience, savor the experience, and soak it up. And these are from Rick Hansen in his book, Buddha's Brain. All right, so now we're going to do an exercise that you can practice on your own to help you tap into this positive experience. It's called Training Your Brain, and this is from Maria Nemeth, PhD. She's the woman who founded my coaching program, the Academy for Coaching Excellence. She's also a licensed clinical psychologist and a master certified coach. On your chairs, there are 2 index cards, and for everybody at home, if you would like to just grab a piece of paper and a pen, that will be helpful. So a good analogy for this is when you're training a dog. In this scenario, our brain is the dog and we are the humans or the owners or the human in the relationship. On one side of the street is a dog who runs around and barks and jumps and doesn't listen to the human. The human might tug back on the leash and say, no, stop. But the dog is still trying to run all over the place. On the other side of the street is a dog who walks calmly next to its human, smelling all the smells, but remaining calm. The dog returns to its owner's side when it's called, and the 2 continue down the street peacefully, happily, and calmly. The dog is taking cues from the human. The human is the alpha or the dominant one. You are the one who observes your brain thinking. So we have the control over what our brains think. We're going to do this exercise 3 times. I'll mind the time, and consider it a self-experiment while we work through this. I want you to observe what you're thinking, the sensations in your body, and how you're feeling. Has there been a shift in your breathing or in the area around your heart? On one index card, write what I'm anxious about at the top, and then write what that might be. Really describe the source of your anxiety, something that really makes your heart feel tense, maybe your body's leaning back or your heart rate is faster. The moment you think of it, your body feels tense. On the second index card, write what I'm grateful for. Something the moment you think about it, your heart opens. Maybe your body relaxes. You feel like you want to lean in. Something that's truly joyous. Any questions? All right. Sure. Second one is something that makes you feel really grateful and joyous. Could be how a flower looks or the sound of your grandchild's laugh. I like the sun's warmth. Anything that feels warm makes your heart feel open and your body relaxed. Okay. While we're doing this, be sure to look what you've actually written on your card. Certainty and clarity help our brains not be confused. So place the cards side by side with the anxiety producing one on the left. And when I tell you go, you're going to look at and focus on the thing that makes you feel anxious for 7 seconds. Then I'll tell you when to switch, and we're going to go to the grateful card for 17 seconds. We do this because neurophysiologically, it gives our brains time to shift mood states. We'll do this for 3 rounds, and then I'll ask you to share your findings. Ready and start. Anxious producing thing. Switch to gratitude. Very good, keep going. Back to anxious. Grateful. Good job, keep going. Back to anxious, last round. Grateful. Good job, keep going. All right. Would anyone like to share their findings? Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm anxious about my family's health and safety.
Okay. I'll repeat it for our people at home. You're anxious about your family's health and safety.
And I'm grateful for a day at the beach.
And she's grateful for a day at the beach. Did you find anything changing in your body while you were looking at these?
Yes, of course. I think I relaxed more when I was thinking about a day at the beach.
Yeah, she relaxed more as she was thinking about the day at the beach. I have found when I've done this exercise, and some of my clients also, and other people I've spoken to, that as you go through it, the more rounds you do, the harder it is to feel as anxious about the thing that invokes anxiety each time you do it. So I pictured as like the thing that makes me anxious, I'm like, ooh, way up here with my anxiety the first time. And then the next time I do it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about here. And the third time I do it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I didn't even have enough time for my brain to get into it to feel anxious and tight with it. So continuing to focus on the gratitude is helpful. It's recommended that we do this 3 times a day. So 3 rounds, 3 times a day. It takes like less than, I don't know, it's like 1.5 minutes or so to do this exercise. And it really kind of like training a dog to walk on a leash. It's repetitive, and it really will get your mind to focus where you want it to go and not let it like run off on a tangent. Also, focusing on these things evokes feelings focusing on these 2 things gives us a better internal locus of control, which is when people people have more control over their life and their outcomes. They are generally happier and have more control over their lives, as opposed to people who have an external locus of control where they feel that they can't control their lives. They're more prone to stress-related illness and burnout. So your brain is an organ that, once trained, will partner with you more easily on your hero's journey because you are treating it with dignity and respect. And that's from Maria Nemeth. Okay. Now we're going to do the Life's Blueprint exercise. You'll need your other piece of paper for that. So remember when I said the way to not focus on an ice cream sundae is to focus instead on a watermelon? We apply this concept to our lives. How do we apply this concept to our lives when something stressful and anxiety producing comes up? By shifting our focus. We are more fulfilled in life and living in alignment with our values and purpose. Our life's intention is an underlying direction, aim, or purpose that brings significant meaning to our life. It comes from deep within us, and it's the living spirit behind our goals and dreams. It's a desire to contribute to others in life and to be known for that contribution. I'm going to read a list of 25 life's intentions. I want you to jot down those that sound the most important or the most in alignment with you. I'll read the list twice so that you can hear them. And note that our life's intentions are only a snapshot in time, reflecting where we are now and what is currently important to us. They can change over time, and what was once important to you may no longer be, and vice versa. This is also from Maria Nemeth at the Academy for Coaching Excellence, just so you know. Okay, so there are 25 life's intentions that I'm going to read. To be financially successful. To be physically fit and healthy. To be a successful artist and sculptor. To be a successful musician or composer. To be a successful author, playwright, or poet. To be a contributor to my community. To be a visionary leader. To be a loving family member. To be a loving, generous friend. To be spiritually developing. To be a well-respected professional. To be an effective manager. To be an effective teacher. To be well educated. To be a creator of beauty. To be an effective coach. To be an effective change agent. To be an effective healer. To be well-traveled. To be an effective mentor. To be a successful entrepreneur or business owner. To be an adventurer. To be an effective therapist. To be an effective minister. To be a successful communicator. All right, that was the end of the first round. I'll read them again one more time, just so you can hear them to grab any you might have missed. Financially successful, physically fit and healthy, a successful artist or sculptor, a successful musician or composer, a successful author, playwright, or poet, a contributor to my community, a visionary leader, a loving family member, a loving, generous friend, spiritually developing, a well-respected professional, an effective manager, an effective teacher, well-educated, a creator of beauty, an effective coach, an effective change agent, an effective healer, well-traveled, an effective mentor, a successful entrepreneur or business owner, an adventurer, an effective minister, a successful communicator. Okay, does everyone have their life's intentions? Okay. Can you tell me what you see or notice when you look at your list? Would you like to share? Yeah.
Well, there are things on here that I wanted that were intentions that I've kind of forgotten about or put on the back burner. So
Very
there's
good.
some things that struck me on that list.
Very good. So some things are important to her that she had forgotten about. I'm pretty sure people at home can hear us, but I'm not positive, so I'm repeating just in case. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is take the top 5 life's intentions and pick focus areas. So how we will demonstrate our life's intentions in our daily lives. For example, for me, I like to be well-traveled. So I can demonstrate that by doing research on areas I would like to visit, making plans in advance so that I'm prepared to go, and being financially successful would be part of that also, actually, so I can afford to travel. Doing what I need to do to set up my life so that I'm able to travel more. Making sure that my family and pets are taken care of while I'm not home. So when we're picking focus areas, we want them to be things that are fun and easy to do. It doesn't need to be a stretch. We're not trying to necessarily grow ourselves. We're not trying to learn to do all the things all at one time. It's just something simple that we can do that will help inspire our creativity. Explore what you might love to do and choose 3 areas that you can demonstrate, 3 things that you can do to demonstrate your life's intention. Does anyone have any they'd like to share or have any questions about? Yes?
Oh, spiritually developing, so you can read books.
Yes. So for spiritually developing, you could read books. How much would you read a day?
Because how much time I have.
Sure.
A chapter a day.
Sure. So you can make it a goal by saying that you'll read a chapter a day, or you can just know that that's something that you can do to help grow yourself to be more spiritually developed. That's what else?
To other people who are, I feel, more spiritual than I am.
Yes. So learning from other people that are more spiritual. Very good. Do you have one more?
Participate possibly in spiritual things, or
you could do research to see what options there are to learn and grow spiritually also.
in the community, especially, or in a particular church.
Sure, locally or in a specific church. Okay. Anyone else?
Maybe be around people that you feel are spiritually well developed.
Yes. Yep. Being around people that are spiritually well developed. Very good. Any other life's intentions that you guys want to share or talk about? It's okay if not. Everyone's like, all right. So the last piece of this is to be willing. So being willing is the capacity to say yes to no matter what we're thinking or feeling. It really kind of brings us to the next level. You might not know how to do something or what the next steps are, but nevertheless, you are willing. You might not want to do something. We may not think we can. Nevertheless, you are willing. So the way we string this together is to say, in order to be spiritually developing, I am willing to read a chapter a day. In order to be a blank life's intention, I am willing to do whatever the focus area is. For me, in order to be a masterful coach, I'm willing to support the public with my coaching skills and knowledge. Hence why we're here today. Why I'm here today. All right. And the one powerful reminder is there are always choices. You always have the choice to show up to life how you want to. So nevertheless, you can be willing. All right, so today we spoke about 4 steps to overcome negativity bias, 3 ways to increase positive experiences, 2 things to focus on while we train our brain, and 1 powerful reminder. Does anyone have any questions? If anyone's interested in continuing to work with me, I'm Christine Seager. You can find me at christineseager.com. My first coaching experience is always free because I feel like you can get more out of coaching than any words I can use to describe it. My coaching is ontology based, which is the study of being. It's how you choose to show up to your life. It's not psychology or anything else. It's how you want to be now. I really love coaching because it doesn't matter what your past looked like. I'm not interested in helping my clients necessarily go back to their past. That would be therapy. But if you want to see what you can do to go forward, how to step into your life better, how to show up to your life more, that's what I'm interested in. I like to look forward. Yeah.
I'm a psychotherapist, so, and I don't do that anymore, but I might do some life coaching. How do you separate that when someone comes to you and they want to tell you about why they can't do certain things because of what's happened to them in the past? How do you bring them up to the level that is where you want to work with them?
Yeah. It would depend on where they are. Some also, like if they're depressed, then I'm not going to go there. I would support them to find support, a therapist or a counselor or whatever sort of support they might need for that. Mm-hmm. I have tools like the Life's Intentions to say, okay, how do you want to be now? Or what is it that you want to look to do now? How do you want to show up now and forward? You know, I personally am very forward and future focused. I try to stay more present myself and to teach my clients that as well. So I don't mind spending a little bit of time listening to their story, but I'm also going to be mindful that they're skipping down that rabbit trail and bring them back to now.
It's hard to get some people past that.
Yeah, well, I have 11 individuals that I've coached, and I haven't had a problem so far. I mean, granted, I'm kind of new, but I also have resources that I'm ready to refer.
And you put that
to.
out there. You know, I'm not here to deal with your depression.
Correct.
I'm here to,
yeah.
So I guess you have to just have a firm boundary.
Yeah. My Maria Nemeth, who did my course, also is a psychoanalyst, and that's part of why I love the Academy for Coaching Excellence, is because I'm, as a nurse by background, I appreciate that she had that experience also, and then the coaching. And honestly, having had counseling and coaching myself, I see that as the best of both worlds, because the counselor can help you understand how you got to where you are and you know why. And then the coach can help you say, okay, now that I've dealt with that, how do I want to go from here forward?
How do you deal with, and I had this as a barrier in therapy, people that don't want to work, they just want you to tell them what to do. How do you make that clear up front that, hey, I'm not going to tell you what to do, I'm going to give you guidelines for you to work on? How do you deal with that when they're like, you give them something to do and then they come back and they're like they didn't do it?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, if they're paying me, I remind them, this is what you're paying me for.
Okay.
And I make it clear that it's an expectation that if they want to improve their life, they have to do the work too.
Okay.
I mean, it would be great if everything were served to us on a silver platter, but that's not what it's all about or how it works.
Exactly.
So that's just not the reality. When I first started, I had a pro bono client that basically wanted to get on the phone and chat with me for an hour every 2 weeks. And we didn't get far. I did call her on it and she didn't really care, but I didn't have like a lot of weight because she wasn't paying me. I mean, really in that relationship, that experience was for me more than it was for her, or wound up being for her, at least because she didn't do the work. Mm-hmm. Another thing too, is if they aren't doing the work, I ask what came up for you this week that had you not do this authentic action. So in my coaching model, we do coach them to action. Usually it becomes clear in the time we spend together, like what their next steps are. My clients come up with that on their own for the most part. Like rarely I'll have like homework or something for them to do, but it's usually just something to solidify what we talked about during our session. And then I would coach them on what came up for them that they didn't do their authentic action, because there's something more there if they didn't actually do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else? Do you have other questions? I love speaking to the other side of it, honestly.
Well, I just know that like dealing with, I mean, my worst nightmare was a depressed woman over 50 and everything that you came up with. No, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I did that and it didn't work. And then they just, they want to talk about the same things and you can't refocus them. And you end up having to tell them, I'm not the person that, feels best.
So how about, again, they're kind of, I mean, it sounds to me like maybe they're stuck in the negativity bias part. They need to learn how to manage their brain. Right. I would make sure, I mean, I also have a tendency to flip into education mode, which I have to watch for myself to not go to too much educating and more like getting their answers and coaching. But I would make sure that they understand that it's normal, that that's how their brain works, and they have the control and power to step past that.
Right, because sometimes they get stuck in the narrative and they can't step out of it.
That's when I'd say, what are the facts? Tell me exactly what's going on with you, and forget the story. I would just gently point out to them, that's your story, that's your past.
So you hear the story, so you kind of know it, but then you move past it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would reflect that back to them.
That's a good plan.
Yeah. And presence, I don't teach about presence very much. I do think it's an important part. It's underlying for everything, for my life. And, reading Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, was pretty much life-changing for me. Okay. Honestly, I don't teach to it because it's a little bit scary to me to be able to teach that concept to other people. I'm still learning to understand it more myself. But that is a piece of it. When COVID first hit, those first 2 weeks or so that we were shut down, I was literally like pacing around my living room, kind of freaking out a little bit. My husband was like, okay, but no one is sick right now. Like today, everyone's fine. So I was like, okay, so it brought my focus of like all of the swirl up here to like, okay, yes, I can look at this right here. Right now, we're okay. So what do I want to do now? Or, what are the next steps here? Not from here. So I think that's part of it too. And then, just discerning the facts. Anything else? Great. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate your time. I totally flew through this. I was thinking it was going to take 2 hours and it took me 45 minutes because I talk fast. But I really appreciate everyone's time and coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.